he said he started living in Krishna House.
Prabhu, can you please come?
since
Prabhu, can you please come?
Yeah.
Anybody please is speaking, if you can please come.
So, I mean, I can, and I see the transformation in her. She's been at Krishna House now, maybe like 4 weeks or something, 3 or 4 weeks. And I've seen the transformation in her, and some of the things I've been trying to teach her for 20 years, she's learned now in a few weeks. So that's a really amazing thing. And Prabhuji told me one thing which I tried, and it really works. So when we had met him for the interview process, he said something like, your best time is when you start off at 2 in the morning till 10, so, right, which you just said now. I was like, how can that be, right? I mean, I never heard that before, but I actually tried it, and it really worked. So much of my work I can finish in during that time frame, and so it's been great. So I just want to share that.
Your daughter is wonderful, and she seems very bright faced now. She's getting happier. Thank you. All right, so we'll stop there. I just would like to conclude with one thing I heard last night, that insomnia is a problem sometimes in the medical field. So I have written some books for this purpose. These are versifications of the Sanskrit texts in English poetry to try to recreate the experience of hearing the Sanskrit for an English speaker. So we've done that. This is the 10th canto, Bhagavad Gita, first canto here. And if you'd like to see any of them, Lolita will have some samples. I'll leave them with her. Thank you. And they're available on Amazon. As far as these, these brochures will just, where's the good, may I leave this with you as well? Okay, so please take these free and let me know if I can be of any service to you in the future in helping develop ashrams in North America. Thank you again for your service.
I also want to testify to Alkanti Prabhu's program. My nephew, raised in a very sheltered Hindu traditional environment in Bombay, found his haven and shelter first time off the boat in Alkanti Prabhu's personal shelter and ashram in Gainesville. And today, 2.5 years later, he is very, enmeshed in devotional culture, mostly sheltered by his program. So, extremely grateful to him personally.
Thank you. Thank you so much for such a great talk and inspiration. So always in medicine, I feel like back to basics is so important. Maybe one day I will come to Krishna House and learn basics strongly, so I will talk with you about that.
Applications are online.
So next I want to introduce the next speaker. Before that, water is outside and the restrooms are that small green room outside of the dining hall. Okay, so just want to do quick announcements. Next speaker is, I don't want to tell extensive CV, but I will tell that he's a good friend. And I will say he is the founder of BMA in 2015. And, he's always I will say driving force for this BMA. And always, if I have any questions, I always call him. He is none other than Prem Vilas Prabhu. I would like to
Hare Krishna. Devotees, thank you. Thank you all for being here. As you probably saw my talk, the title of my talk is pretty, I would say, kind of loud mouth, how to inspire thousands. So just a little bit about me, why I chose this talk. I was doing my residency at the Ohio State University in Columbus, Ohio, when I started going to the temple.
temple, Krishna House again, 2001, started going there, Kirtan, Prashadam, books, devotees. Prashadam was definitely the highlight for the life. And in 2003, I started going there. When I first walked in the Columbus Krishna House, ISKCON was transitioning from the full-time, brahmachari model to Grihastha model. The transition had begun in the mid-90s, and we had two Matajis who were actually running the Krishna House. And we had a congregation of 4 families. In the last 20 years, our congregation has grown to over 200 families. In the last 20 years, hundreds of individuals have passed through Columbus Krishna House, ISKCON Columbus, who are doing amazing services all over the world. Some have now graduated from GBC College. One person is a GBC, zonal supervisor. So anyway, that has been a great source of personal fulfillment and inspiration and service for me. Also, my godbrother and myself, he's an aspiring sannyasi. In the state I came from in India, we thought, okay, let's start doing something. We started renting small places, and in the last 20 years, we were instrumental in opening about 20 centers in the state where I come from. Many of those centers have now morphed into full-fledged temples with Rath Yatras attracting millions of people, hundreds of devotees, hundreds of initiated devotees. In 2012, I started going to West Africa, and we would print small books of Prabhupada and pamphlets. In that part of the world, people can't afford big sets or complete hardbound books. So we focused on small books and pamphlets, and we have published more than 1 million small books for West Africa in the last 10 years. So what did I learn through these years? And I just want to share with you, what did I learn? In Columbus, in my service to ISKCON, in my service to Srila Prabhupada, I'll ask you a question. This is a volunteer organization. Can anybody tell me what is the largest volunteer organization in the world? Lalita said Red Cross. Gurudwara. Now, nice guess, Prabhu. Gurudwaras are the place of worship where Sikh people, the one with the turban, right? They worship. Limited to one ethnic group, Hari. Limited to one ethnic group, but not even close. And the reason I'm saying this is because we are all volunteers. Nobody gets paid, right? And it's important to take a leaf, to take a lesson. Kalakanta Prabhu told the story of Alexander. Anybody want to take a guess? Salvation Army, not even close. Red Cross, Salvation Army. Doctors Without Borders?
Doctors Without Borders. So, sometimes when I ask this question, people say Swami Narayans, they build this ginormous temples all over the world, right? Or a Catholic church. So the largest volunteer organization, and you can fact check me, every word I say, is an organization from India. It's called RSS. Okay? Rashtriya Swayam Seva Sangh. 6 million members, all volunteers. It has 20 affiliated organizations with 2 million more members, so 8 million members. It was founded in 1925, and in the last 100 years, not one schism has happened. 8 million members. There are 200 countries in the world. They have branches in 160 countries. It's not limited to any ethnic group. They have branches in 160 countries. The only places where they cannot have their branches is those 50 Islamic countries, right? So it was founded in 1925 by a physician, by a doctor. The first branch, they call it the Shakha.
the branch. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used this word, right? Shakha. So the first Shakha with 5 members, and he was a guy named R.K. Hegdevar, and Hegdevar said something very profound. This was his mission statement. Hegdevar said that in a company of a group of people, where there is high energy and low toxicity, people will fundamentally change. He started his first branch with 5 people. He basically said that in order for anything to grow, you need to have 2 things. Whether it's a family as a volunteer unit, whether it's a group of Bhakti Vriksha, whether it's a community, whether it's organization like ISKCON or whatever. You need to have high energy and low toxicity. So 2 keys to growth is high energy and low toxicity. And they were all, by the way, they were, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, Narendra Modi, you probably heard these names. They're single men. Because Hegdevar himself was single, never married. They were sannyasis. Even today, Maharaj, the leading leaders, they're all single men who have dedicated their life to a purpose, to a cause, everything. They take vows of celibacy and poverty and simplicity, and they live very simple lives. And that organization, 6 million people, now, until about 1980s, most of the leaders were in jail. And today they control the destiny of 2 billion people in the world. And there are 6 million. And Prabhupada said if there are 1% devotees, there are 8 billion people in the world. If 80 million become devotees, the world will change. And you can see it happening right in front of your eyes. This is a contemporary organization of 6 million people. And they have their weekly meetings. They focus on 2 things. Discipline. They have physical exercises and discipline. Hegdevar himself, they would start with 200 push-ups, his meeting. And they have fun, they have games, and they have fun, and they have a very deep and profound relationships with one another. They say we live or we fly or we die together. We fly or we die together, right? You heard that, right? So that's their motto. We fly or we die together. Hegdevar was a physician. In 1925, he started this organization. So he talked about high energy and low toxicity. Now my second part is the 4 questions to inspire thousands, right? Hegdevar understood that wherever there are human beings, there is going to be toxicity, politicking, conflict, and pain. Wherever there are 2 human beings, there's going to be conflict and there's going to be pain. And Hegdevar said something very profound. Hegdevar said there is no growth without conflict and without pain. He said conflict and pain are essential prerequisites for growth and for change and for development. So, and if you have accepted this, then everything else is gravy. How do we manage conflict and pain tells who we are. And whether we're going to grow or whether we're going to stagnate and die down. So the first question is, are we able to face and embrace conflict and pain? And so what is the way to deal with conflict? The first thing is having a structure to face conflict. I'm speaking to you from my experience. If you're all leaders or volunteers, whether it's a family, whether it's Bhakti Vriksha, whether it's a temple, is there a structure in place to address conflict? Is there discipline to follow that structure? And is there stoicism to deal with it? When Heidegger said low toxicity, toxicity comes when we start to see the fault in others. And high energy means to see the good in others. Prabhupada established this society, established hundreds of temples, put people in positions of responsibility because he saw the Atma and the Paramatma in every jiva. Well, Maharaj, I'm so grateful to you for the work you have done, in Canada and other places in the world. So this idea of high energy means to see the good in others and to empower people and to give them the position of responsibility. And begins with seeing the good in yourself. You have to look at the mirror and talk something positive to yourself first. And you have to have that belief. So high energy, low toxicity, first thing is conflict and pain management. With structure, with discipline, with stoicism. What happens is, as soon as there is a conflict, emails are going out and WhatsApp messages and social media, and my God, 24 hours later, the solution is worse than the problem, right? The whole drama and the gossip and toxicity, it's high toxicity environment. So in Columbus, what we try to do is try to eliminate as much toxicity as we can. Another thing which Steve Jobs said about conflict, he said one way to minimize conflict. Now, everybody has heard of Apple, top 5 companies. Everybody has either one gadget of Apple or some software, right, Abhiram? One thing. Those products, every 2 years, he comes with the best phone, best computer, best tablet. It doesn't come without a culture. Steve Jobs talked about this. He said to eliminate conflict, these are Steve Jobs' words. And this is now the model he created at Apple. The culture has been picked up by everybody. The whole Silicon Valley runs on this model. He called it lean teams. You have a big task, let's say, with a $10, $12, $15 million temple. You have a big task, you divide this into small teams and put only as many people on that team as it's needed to execute the job. And Steve Jobs said, he quoted this word, high signal divided by volume ratio. He said, in any team, you should have high signal and less volume. Volume is everybody who's standing on the periphery and talking and have an opinion. And signal is the person who's actually showing up to work and doing the job. So Steve Jobs said, to eliminate conflict, he gives a part of this project to a team of 4 people who shows up to work. And they only get to make the decisions. And he eliminates all the other noise. And whether it's good or bad, it's their failure or their success. So high signal and low volume. And person who actually shows up to wash the parts, he should decide how the parts get washed. A person who shows up to do something should decide how things should develop and empower him. And you cut out all the other noise. And if somebody has, what about experience and what about this and that? Well, they can give their suggestion humbly to the person who's doing the job. And then it's his decision whether to accept it or not. Second principle, high signal, low volume. You cut out all the fluff, you cut out all the toxicity from the environment. Third principle, a hierarchy which is fluid. So in any institution, in any organization, hierarchies tend to develop. I think what happens is sometimes, and I'm not critical, I'm just stating, people think that this one person has all the answers. A fluid hierarchy means that, for example, if I'm responsible in Columbus for some sort of vision, I may have a high hierarchy in vision, but when it comes to finances, I do not interfere. So the hierarchy is fluid across the spectrum. When it comes to deity worship, I don't make decisions. We sometimes have this idea, utopian idea, that one person knows it all. So again, it goes back to lean teams, people working on their areas of strength and actually who show up to work. So third principle is hierarchy, which is fluid. Welcome, Judah, we missed you. You okay? Health is good?
Yeah.
Bobby, health is good? Third principle. And finally, high energy means, in this world, our Surgeon General of the United States, Vivek Murthy, he says right now, in the United States, there is an epidemic of mental health, stemming from loneliness and isolation. Maharaj, you talked about the beach brown belly. It comes from isolation, loneliness. Medical studies are showing loneliness is the single biggest risk factor for stroke and vascular disease and heart disease, and cancer and death. And temple culture of spiritual communities, we have an incredible opportunity to address that. And if we all have to survive and grow, then we should focus on giving time and avoiding transactional relationships and giving quality time to people. People need people. Just connecting with people should be a virtue and an end in itself. And it should not be a stepway to some end, whatever that end may be, whether it's preaching or service or something else, But just having relationships with people should be a virtue and an end in itself. Again, it brings high level of energy to an environment. Right, Prasanna? Right, Achyuta? So these 4 questions. Number 1, high energy and low toxicity. Accepting conflict and pain. Developing lean teams. Having fluid hierarchies. And relationships as a virtue in and of itself. Just want to make sure I understand. And finally, just one last principle which I use in my own life. My Shiksha Guru told me, Vaisheshika Guru, be death conscious, then be soul conscious, only then you can be Krishna conscious. When you sit down to chant, you think that this is the last day of your life. And all of you can just take a moment to think, if you were to die tonight at midnight, what is really important? So be death conscious, then you can be soul conscious. And then one can be Krishna conscious. Okay, so thank you very much.